we don't expand our imagination.
Justification for being what you are.
And welcome to Washington Unplugged. I'm Bob Schieffer. Well, some good news today for President Obama when the nation's employment numbers finally showed a gain, the first time since late in 2007. The jobless rate held steady last month at 9.7%. Politico's Eamon Javers is going to join us to talk about that. Also today, CBS's Harry Smith and Clark Kellogg took on the president at his own game. And we're going to have a behind-the-scenes look at that. And finally, our Kaylee Hartung takes a look at the ACC Coach of the Year and Player of the Year. They're both from the University of Maryland. That's later. But first, let's talk about jobs. Eamon Javers is here, and I have a story from Politico by Eamon Javers. And here's what it says. President Obama got the first unequivocally good news on the nation's employment picture Friday as the new government figure showed the nation gained 162,000 jobs in the month of March. This is some news the president, well, and the country needed.
They've been waiting for this for a long time over at the White House, and I know earlier in the week as the expectation became that this would be a big gain on Friday, they began to position their people. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner was on Bloomberg News talking about the economy this morning. The president is in North Carolina also talking about the economy today. They're trying to get as big of a bounce out of this politically as they can because they've been in the past really reduced to talking about how the economy has been getting less and less bad. Now they can finally start to talk about it's getting more and more good.
Well, explain to me, because the unemployment rate stays at 9.7%, right, yet there were 162,000 new jobs. Now, what does that mean?
Right. Well, part of it is that you need 100,000 jobs just to stay even in the economy because of the population growth of the country. You need a lot of jobs just to stay afloat. So another thing that we're looking at here is there's a bounce back from the February snowstorms on the East Coast. If you remember, that actually impacted the jobs numbers in February as a lot of people were snowed in, couldn't get to their jobs. Now we see that bounce back, and also we see a big boost in hiring from the U.S. Census. Almost 50,000 of these jobs are temporary federal jobs for folks to go out and canvass and knock on doors. That's not really a true indicator of what's going on in the economy.
What would you say the state of the economy is now? I think most economists seem to think maybe it's bottomed out, but nobody thinks that we're recovered yet.
The question is whether we're about to turn the corner. I mean, you can feel it in the stock market. The Dow Jones was flirting with 11,000 this week. That would be a big psychological barrier if they break through that next week. That's certainly possible. This employment number, the first time they've seen a big gain, is real indication that there is starting to be traction. We might be right at that hinge point where it's starts to turn from bad to starting to really improve.
So put the spin aside, this is good news for the country as well as for the
It's terrific news for the country. We've stopped the bleeding. Now we've got to begin a very slow recovery process. Remember, there are nearly 15 million people out of work in this country. It's down nearly 8 million from where it was before the recession started. It's going to take a very long time. Even if you gain 100,000 jobs a month, it will take a long, long time to put all the people back to work who've lost their jobs in this recession.
For the president himself, there was some news that came out today, the new CBS News poll, that is not particularly good because it shows that his approval rating has dropped about 5 points since the week before the Congress approved the health care legislation.
And this really goes against inside the Beltway conventional wisdom. The thinking here in town has always been America loves a winner, and if the president can get the health care bill through, whatever they think of the substance, his popularity will improve a little bit. He'll get some kind of a bounce because people say, well, he's succeeding, he's doing what he needs to do, he's doing what he said he was going to do. But we're not really seeing that. We're not seeing a popularity bounce. He's sagging a little bit in this new CBS poll. It's really a matter of concern at the White House because they want the health care bill to be seen as a signature achievement of Barack Obama. But if it's viewed as a loser, that's really his main accomplishment to date this year. They're going to have a real tough time arguing that into the fall elections.
I guess most people, and this is my view, is that it would have been a political disaster for Barack Obama had health care failed.
Right.
But the fact that it passed, it also seems to bring some negatives with it, as we're seeing now. The country when you come right down to it, you can find some polls that say a majority of people don't want health care reform. You'll find others that say they do. But most of the reliable polls, the bottom line seems to be the country is really split.
Yeah.
There is a wide split.
And the White House had a terrible argument to make to Democrats who were wavering in the last days before the health care vote. They basically said to them, look, you've got two options. One is horrific, in which we don't pass anything, and one is just pretty bad, in which we do pass something. And when you ask a politician to choose from between horrific and pretty bad, that's never a comfortable position to be in, but that's where the Democrats were on this health care vote.
So right now, as someone looking ahead to the elections, the midterm elections, I think my guess is Democrats are going to lose a bunch of seats. Whether they lose the majority, I think, is still to be decided.
Yeah, and after huge gains in the 08 cycle and in the 06 cycle, they're really teed up to have some losses here for the Democrats. The real question is whether we're going to see the Republicans be able to capture either the House or the Senate. That seems to be up in the air, but these economic numbers, the job gains, augur well for the Democrats going into the fall, because they can start to point to those gains and say, hey, our policies are really working here. The stimulus, the other things the president's been doing, that's working. Republicans, of course, are going to come back against that and argue against it all year.
Once again, the overriding issue will be the economy, it seems to me.
Always is. It always is.
Eamon, thank you so much for being with us this morning. The early show's Harry Smith and CBS Sports' Clark Kellogg took on President Obama yesterday on his home turf at the White House basketball court. We were there for an exclusive behind-the-scenes look. CBS News' Christine DeLargy caught them prepping for the game, got Harry and Clark's predictions, and their post-game wrap-up.
I'm the guy who quit his high school basketball team to join the speech team. And my best friend at the time said I would live to regret it, and 30-some years later, I finally regret it.
Well, I'm pretty competitive, and from all indications, so too is our president. I don't think either guy will give ground, and that's the way both of us would like to have it. But as I've told many who've asked me before, I'm in it to win it.
I'm not so sure about this. The president's small, he's lithe, he can move. I know I've seen him move. But Clark, oh my gosh, Clark, he's got him on height, no question about it. And I think Clark still has the moves. So, you know, I may get into trouble around here for saying this, but I'm going with Clark.
There it is, United States SEAL.
Does that intimidate you?
No. No, the fact that it's on the ball, no, it still fits in the basket.
All right, I'm ready.
You ready?
Whap. Well, I can go glass. Come on. Let's see what you got.
It was fun. It was great fun. I had the president down early. Had him down pretty good, but you could see those competitive juices start to rise up in him. And he realized he was shooting too much with just his arms and not enough legs. And once he got his legs into that left-handed jump shot, boy, it started to splash through the bottom of the net. And then he came after me hard and was able to nip me at the finish line. So I think it was good theater. I made enough shots to put the pressure on him. He regrouped and rallied, and then we went down to the wire, and I think that's the way it should have been. I didn't want to take him out early, and I liked his resilience.
They were clearly much better players than I am. So I very wisely excused myself and allowed the better players to take the court, which is part of basketball etiquette, right? If you learn to play basketball on the street, you know when it's time to let the better players play.
And you can see this big face-off, the whole thing, on the CBS coverage of the NCAA tournament and on the early show. For the record, after a slow start, the president did beat sports commentator and former basketball player Clark Kellogg in a game of POTUS, a presidential take on horse. The president joked that his victory was just like health care. He said, "I came from behind." Well, the ACC Coach of the Year and the Player of the Year, Gary Williams and Gravis Vasquez, won't be playing in the Final Four that continues on CBS Sports tomorrow, but they will be there, and they sure know the teams that will be playing. Our Kaylee Hartung visited the University of Maryland this week for their expert tournament predictions.
March Madness has been unpredictable. Duke is the only #1 seed to make it to the Final Four, and the last time they lost a game was in this arena at the University of Maryland. On Saturday, can #2 seed West Virginia knock out the Blue Devils? We asked Maryland coach Gary Williams and his star point guard Gravis Vasquez.
I think going in, West Virginia might be the hot team going into the tournament. They played great to get there, and I would say they'd be the favorite.
I think the match between West Virginia and Duke is going to be a fun game to watch.
They also know a thing or two about Michigan State. The Spartans ended Maryland's tournament dreams in the second round.
Vasquez has got to engineer something.
A heartbreaking loss at the buzzer.
I won't get over the loss for a long time. Michigan State is one of those teams that just stays solid the whole game.
Butler. I really like Butler. I don't know. I mean, I think they play together. They probably not the most talented team, but they got a great chemistry, and then they got it going on right now.
Today, Williams and Vasquez are headed to the Final Four, but only as spectators.
Whoever wins in Indianapolis, they'll be the #1 team in this country, but we're #1 in Venezuela because of this guy.
I mean, this is the American dream in a sense. I mean, coming from Venezuela and then becoming, college basketball All-American.
I can't believe it. I got.
Vasquez's parents often traveled from their home in Venezuela to follow their son's record-breaking career. He tallied over 2,000 career points, was named the top point guard in the country, and he's expected to be a first-round draft pick.
I think he's going to have a great NBA career because he's the type of player that makes teams better, and I'm not saying that because he's sitting here.
I mean, I don't want to be a superstar. I'm just trying to get a job. I'm not really picky about anything. I just trying to help a team win games.
He hasn't always been so humble. Some Maryland fans say his enthusiasm verged on showboating. You're an emotional coach and you're an emotional player.
A lot of people are like, oh, how can you have a good relationship with him when you're crazy? And he's crazy too. And I was like, we just love the game.
Coach Williams broke records of his own this season. He's the ACC Coach of the Year and the winningest coach in Maryland's history. But for 20 years, it's been all about the players.
And I want it to be fun. That's the one thing I want now for myself, selfishly, as a coach. I want to enjoy the players I'm with.
For both, there's just something about college basketball.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I would trade all that. I would trade all that, All-American, anything I will win the next couple of weeks, only just to be playing one more game.
How competitive is this guy?
Close. You got any pointers for me? Got any tips?
Even if you're a novice, there's no pity.
I wish you would have made that shot backwards. Then you really would have made me look bad.
For CBSNews.com, I'm Kaylee Hartung.
He's pretty good. Well, thanks for watching Washington Unplugged, and do not forget to watch us on television Sunday when we'll have a roundtable of our CBS News correspondents looking ahead on what to expect next and what the first 3 months of this administration have accomplished. I'm Bob Schieffer. Have a great day.
If we don't expand our imagination,
Justification for being what you are.